Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show. We cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment. And we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a pretty interesting show, but before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to check out the Dreamers Pro podcast that we have pinned in the comments below before we get into the show. So let's go ahead and get into it here. Now, LeBron James and JJ Redick debuted their podcast last week, right? And it came with a lot of hype and hoopla, and it created a lot of conversation, justifiably, because when you have a name like LeBron James, who's the current face of the NBA, and you pair him with a guy like JJ Redick, who's always on TV, had his own podcast, you expect there to be a lot of attention and people looking forward to, watching it. And that's exactly what happened. The debut show, which was about 43 minutes or thereabout, got about 1.8 or maybe 2 million. I could be wrong now. Maybe 2 million views that first episode, and they picked up a ton of subscribers. And there's been a lot of conversation. Some people like the podcast, some people don't. But they've made it clear that, listen, this is going to be a basketball thing. We want to focus on basketball. JJ Redick has gone on ESPN on numerous occasions and lamented the coverage of sports, and he's basically complained about the fact that it's all about headlines. Whenever I say something that will grab a headline or there's some controversy, people tune in. But whenever I talk about the X's and O's of basketball, people don't really click to see those type of shows. So it seems like LeBron James and JJ Redick wanted to provide something new to the market that they thought it was missing. So this morning I was doing some research, and I came across an article here that basically is explaining, or basically where you have LeBron James explaining why he and JJ Redick actually decided to start the podcast, and you're going to hear from LeBron James himself. But before we even get into what LeBron had to say, this video is brought to you by a sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is really simple. Instead of just selecting a team, you just select two or more players, pick more or less their projected stats, and then you place your entry. For example, this week, I'm selecting two entries. Stephen Curry for more than 25 points, and then I got Anthony Davis for more than 2 blocks, and Damian Lillard for more than 4 3-pointers made. PrizePicks is also the only daily sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So for example, if you have a player who gets injured in the first half and doesn't return to the second half, that player gets automatically rebooted. What I also love about PrizePicks is that it offers weekly promotions like Taco Tuesdays. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's go to prizepicks.com/CLNS, use code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. And once again, once you support this sponsor, you're supporting this channel. Thank you. So let me get into it here. It says LeBron James and JJ Redick Mind the Game podcast was started to re-educate fans of basketball with what the true essence of the game is, according to LeBron himself. I feel like we're losing the essence of the game of basketball and the true meaning behind the game, teaching our youth and teaching people what the game of basketball truly means. I was getting very frustrated with the daily comparisons every single day. Who's better between you and Dave McMenamin, or how this would affect your legacy. If these guys played in the 50s, or if this guy played in the 50s today, it's not good for the youth. The article then continued on. James also revealed why he thinks the conversation needs to change and why he started the podcast with JJ Redick. If you're hearing this every day on national television, I feel like our audience needed a different approach to the true essence of the game, how I fell in love with the game. When you have someone like JJ, who has a mindset about the game of basketball, is very smart, and fell in love with the game for all the right reasons. It's something I've been thinking about for a while with JJ. It was perfect timing. And then the article then went on to say a few other things there. And of course, there's the audio of LeBron actually expressing those views that we just read out to you just now. So what are my thoughts on this? First of all, from a strategic standpoint, I think it's smart. If you read the book Blue Ocean Strategy, you basically want to go somewhere and serve a market that's being underserved. So even though there's a lot of conversation in the basketball space, there are a lot of podcasts. There's a new podcast popping up what seems like every single day or whatever, every single week. There's a new podcast, there's a new player, there's a new independent creator talking about sports. It's always interesting to try to come at this thing from a different angle. And in this case, LeBron is like, listen, we want to get into the X's and O's and teach people basketball. And I think that that's needed. I watched the first show, and they really got into the nitty gritty of the sport. They got into a lot of the jargon that NBA players use when they play basketball, some of the audibles and stuff like that. It's educational, and I think that it can serve people that are looking for a deeper understanding of the sport. So obviously, there are always going to be people that will be interested in that. Now, to JJ's point, which was the following, when he was on ESPN, essentially complaining about the fact, when I talk about the X's and O's, no one watches. But whenever I talk about, for instance, Doc Rivers, all of a sudden, millions and millions of people tune in. The question is why? And I think that the reason that is it's because it's more interesting for people, whether we like it or not. For whatever reason, people tend to have certain behaviors. People like drama, right? People like confrontation. People like salacious stories. People like to see fights. For whatever reason, that garners a lot of attention, right? So I don't think that this podcast will change that, because it's a human behavior. Number one, I think there's also the aspect of it. Just make sure the meal is cooked really properly. I don't need to know exactly how it was made. There's also that aspect of it, right? Where people want the finished product, and I don't really need to know all of the steps that went into it. Just get it done. If I go to a restaurant, I order steak, I want it to be good. I don't need the chef to come out here and explain to me why the steak is so good. Some people will be interested in that. Others won't be. It's just the way that it's going to be. But I definitely think that what these guys are doing, I think there are a lot of people that are going to be interested in that. However, I will say this, though. You will need to sprinkle in certain shows that address some of the things that are happening in the sport and the culture. Because ultimately, people are tuning in to hear what you have to say about other things as well. And when you have a personality like LeBron James, his bigger than life personality, yes, we know you know basketball. Yes, we want to hear about basketball, but we also want to know, what did LeBron think about what just happened that night? For instance, he did a show about the comeback that the Lakers had against the Clippers. He spoke about that. Well, that's interesting, right? Apart from the X's and O's. So I think there's going to have to be a blend. I also think that doing these things, you also have to be flexible. You don't want to be too rigid with your opinions. You got to be with your strategy. You also have to be flexible and look at what people are looking for. I think that's just with everything, right? You just can't be too, I'm going to do it like this, and this is going to be the only way that it's going to be done. But this is just my view, right? To me, as someone that covers basketball, that talks about basketball, it's a very educational show. For someone that's taking their kid to the basketball game on a Friday night, or taking their family to go watch a game, will they sit down and watch that podcast? Probably not. And that's just how it's going to go, because different people, they're different audience demographics that follow the sport. They're younger people, they're people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and people have different things happening in their life. So it also comes down to people's time. So these are my thoughts. Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. We catch you on the next show. Peace.